It's spring break week here at IPFW, and while the huge majority of the student body is away from campus and not thinking about school, the athletic teams, especially the spring athletic teams, are still trying to get some work done, mainly down south. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we'll take a quick look and see what's going on with the baseball, softball, and men's volleyball teams. And we're going to review the men's basketball season with head coach Doug Knoll, and play an interview that we had taped earlier before basketball started with Doug Knoll, Tracy Woodson, former manager of the Fort Wayne Wizards, who's also an NCAA Division I official, and myself. So a lot of things to look at Mastodon Spotlight. Stay tuned. The program begins in just a moment right here on College 56 Sports.
Can you pass the salt, Dad?
Salt is to pepper as gregarious is to...
Oh, no, not more SAT questions.
In ancient Rome, salt was a form of currency. True or false?
False?
True.
Son, can you locate sodium?
Or chloride?
There are tons of ways to help with your kids' learning. Find the really good ones on connectforkids.org.
You have 3.5 grams of salt and a 5-gram slug. What's the rate of shrivel?
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maas. Welcome once again to Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, it's spring break week here at IPFW, and the majority of the 11,000 students here at the university are away. Maybe some are traveling or just staying at home, but they're not in class. But our athletic teams, the spring athletic teams, are still hard at work, and we'll talk about them momentarily and check their progress. Let's start our review of activities with men's volleyball. 2 home matches last week against Clark College out of Dubuque, Iowa on Friday, and then Ohio State in a match we broadcast last Saturday here on Channel 56. The Friday night match went as expected. IPFW has never lost to Clark College, and they won for the 22nd consecutive time, winning by scores of 30-17, 30-23, and 30-19. Balanced scoring in terms of attack percentage, as 6 players had 4 kills apiece. And I think Jeff Patak had 6 kills, and Matty Zbyszewski had 12 kills in 2 of the 3 sets that he played in. So a good win. It stopped the 3-match losing streak that the team had, and set up an interesting match against Ohio State. Again, last Saturday night, Ohio State had played IPFW 11 days earlier in Columbus and won in 4 sets. And this match was close. Ohio State won set 1. IPFW played great in set 2. Set 3 went back and forth. Volleydons had a 26-25 lead and the serve, but couldn't keep it up, and Ohio State came back 1 set 3 and 1 set 4 to win the match in 4. Ohio State's now 11-5 on the year, 7-1 in conference play. IPFW, which had a great performance from Jeff Patak, 27 kills, falls to 7-6 overall, 4-4 in conference play. They will play 5th-ranked Lewis this Saturday night, 7 o'clock. Can't make it out in person. Tune into College 56 for that match. That's men's volleyball. Men's and women's tennis, are in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Their matches get underway today, which is Tuesday as we're taping it, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and we'll let you know how that goes next week on the show. Softball team, baseball team, also both of them down in Florida. Baseball team had a game scheduled with Thomas More College in Georgia. We had Billy Gurnon on last week. That was rained out, will not be made up. Monday, they had a game with Harvard. It was tied 4-4 when Mother Nature intervened again, and the game ended in a tie. They're hoping to get some other games in this week as well. Softball, Keith Fisher's team has had 1 game rained out. They've been able to play 3 games. They've won 1 of the 3, with several more scheduled this week. So if Mother Nature cooperates, they will be able to get some games in, and we'll let you know how they did on next week's program. That's what's happened, or is what's trying to be happening with spring sports here at IPFW. We're going to take a break. When we come back, you will see an interview that we did right before the start of basketball season with head men's basketball coach Doug Knoll and Tracy Woodson. Tracy was the manager of the Fort Wayne Wizards of the Midwest League last year. He's also an accomplished NCAA Division I official, and we think that you'll enjoy the conversation that we had. And then after that, Doug and I will come back and talk about the recently completed men's basketball season. But the interview with Tracy Woodson and Doug Knoll will take place when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
for those we leave behind.
Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations. Proud of you. All right. Ensign Elliott. Who's going to salute him? Guys, who gets to salute him first?
Hi, I'd like to volunteer for something in legal aid. I was an assistant district attorney in New York City. I successfully prosecuted everything from extortion to murder.
That was a TV show. You weren't really an assistant district attorney.
I guess this isn't really a badge.
That's a Screen Actors Guild card.
I can spell habeas corpus. H-A-B.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at uscfreedomcorps.gov.
May he bless you and keep you. May he grant you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for coming. I'll see you all next week, and please be careful going home.
This is me, and my mom and dad, and my big brother Alex, and Jack. This is the day I learned that sandals got their name from sand, and that the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget I was sick. This was my wish.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. This week, it's our men's basketball preview. We've been talking with the head men's basketball coach here at IPFW, Doug Knoll. And we've got a special segment for you as Tracy Woodson, who some people know is the manager of the Fort Wayne Wizards, but what some other people don't know is also an NCAA Division I official, is kind enough to join us. And Tracy, welcome to Mastodon Spotlight.
Thank you, Mike.
I know you and Doug just met each other before during the break. First question I want to ask, now we're going to go on basketball mode instead of baseball mode, is how long have you been an official?
Well, I started in '96, so got a few D2, D3 games, and then just worked my way up through different conferences, and this will be my third year in the Southeastern Conference.
Southeastern Conference, you go to Rupp Arena and Tennessee and Alabama. And
it's an unbelievable. My first experience at Rupp Arena was 3 years ago, and you know, it was against Eastern Kentucky, and who I'd had before in the OVC. But you know, you think it's not that big of a game, but at Kentucky, every game's big, and it's a full house. It's like a circus. It's unbelievable, the people that show up there.
You got into officiating. Any particular reason why? I mean, you've been a baseball man for.
Yeah, I played through high school, and actually got looked at by a couple small schools, but I knew baseball was going to be I couldn't jump, I couldn't, you know, I couldn't stay with the really good basketball players defensively, but you know, I could shoot a little bit. But my dad refereed small college and high school for about 25 years, and actually I started doing it at the YMCA to get a free membership through one of my buddies so I could work out for baseball. And a couple guys said, man, he said, you got a little, you know, you're calm on the court. He said, you need to talk to a few people. And I started doing high school and stuff and just worked my way up. And I always thought, I said, boy, I'd like to try a little bit higher than what I'm doing right now, and just got to a couple camps at Nike in Indianapolis. You know, my last year playing from Columbus, I just drove over during my All-Star break, and it went from there.
Doug and I have talked many times on this program over the last 3 years, the progression for IPFW basketball from NCAA Division II to NCAA Division I. Doug's been an NAIA coach. Let me ask you from an official standpoint, what differences do you see, as you say you started out in the collegiate ranks, Division III, Division II, Division I, what differences do you see in those divisions?
Athletes. Number one is athletes. You know, Division III, Division II, you'll have your 6'6", 6'7" centers in Division II, Division III that don't move very well. They're not as quick, and you really have to hold your whistle. That was my biggest thing, is I had to hold the whistle. Watch the play completely. You'll have guys in like you said, at Kentucky or whatever, they'll drive the lane and you'll see a charge coming. You see it coming, but you hold the whistle, and somehow he'll lay it up and avoid contact. And that's just what it's amazing to me, is to watch that type of athletic ability. And you really get caught up in watching the game that way, but you see every play through.
Talk about a typical game that you work. You work in a three-man crew. Talk about, there's got to be full vision and then there's got to be tunnel vision. Talk about what being an official is like and what you have to do.
Well, I was brought up in the system where you've got your area and then you've got a secondary area. You don't go in front of, you really don't go in front of somebody else unless it's just blatant and it has to be called. You take your area, you call what you see, and the biggest thing, and a lot of guys will ask, what do you do when, if Tubby Smith says something about something, he wants a home call. To me, a referee needs to be able to make a call on the road for the road team if it's there. And I'm not scared to do that, and I know a lot of officials that I work with a lot are not scared to do that. And to me, that's a good official. Let the play happen. If you're not I'm not calling something at the end of the game that I haven't called early in the game. I'm not calling 3 seconds. I'll try to talk them out of it. If you're going to call the palm early in the game, you got to get it at the end of the game. If you're not going to call it at the end of the game, then don't call it at the beginning of the game. And I realize that coaches want the same thing I want as a manager. When I want consistency behind the play from an umpire, I'm going to talk to them and try to get calls from my kids later on in the game, and that's what they do. But I really try to communicate. If I miss a call, I'll go up and say, Coach, I missed that one. I said, I'll get a better view next time, and it won't happen again. And I think that's what coaches want. That's all I want. And I realize sometimes when coaches get mad at me, they're trying to fire at their teams. I get tossed, occasionally just to, try to fire my team. It doesn't happen all the time. I tell people a story. I was managing at Erie in 1998, and we were down 5-1, and the guy missed a call, and he knew it. And I went out there, and he said, Tracy, I'm not going to throw. I said, well, I'm staying here until you throw me out. He said, just throw me out. I said, maybe it'll rally my team. He tossed me. We lost 10-1. So it didn't work. So, but that's what I, you try to limit your talk with the coaches. But I'll tell them, and I think a lot of guys will tell them, I did miss that call. I said I'll get a better look at it next time.
Doug, you're not a baseball manager, but you're a basketball coach. But you're not an official. What do you look for in an official when you get ready to bring your team on the floor?
Well, we try to officiate sometimes out there, Mike, but. Basically we've moved into the Division I area, and I've found too that we've had really in our first year last year of transition, and we've had really a great group of officials. It's just like in what Tracy was talking about levels of players. I also think the levels of officials, take a big jump from the Division II, Division III. Obviously, the pay is a big jump, and these guys, that I've known are saying, just let us officiate one game, and it's good for those guys to really, try to get to that level as well. And just like players that want to play Division I basketball, officials want to officiate Division I basketball. And Tracy's right about the officiating at Kentucky, and I mean, these guys are incredible athletes, and they get up and down the floor so fast. They're so big, but yet they move, so quick. And what we want basically is the same things that he's talking about. You want the same calls. You want it to kind of flow. And hey, we know going on the road as much as we do, and having conference officials, say at Oregon State, when we have Pac-10 officials, we're probably not going to get a lot of breaks, and you just kind of understand that, but yet that's just kind of the way it is, and we've accepted that. And there's been guys do a great job, for us or for the game when we've been on the road. I think at Colorado State we shot 34 free throws, so I mean, it's not like they're not going to give us any calls, but you got to pay the price too. I mean, just like Michael Jordan gets the calls, in the NBA, and the rookie doesn't. That's just what we were. We were the rookie team in Division I, and it's kind of the pecking order of getting through. But I think as a college basketball coach, the one key is communication. You just like to communicate with the officials. Yeah, there's times when you're not mad at the official, but you use it anyways, as Tracy was talking about, to springboard your team, get them fired up, or this or that, and that's kind of what we look at too. But I really feel like, if I continually badger an official, he just, it's kind of like your kids, sooner or later they're going to tune you out. And if you can wait till, you know, the appropriate times, and then maybe say your piece and move on. I think it also takes away from you as a coach when you're constantly thinking about the officiating and not, you know, what's going on with the game and the adjustments and kind of the things that you need to concentrate with your basketball team. So we've just seen a great jump in the quality of officiating moving into Division I, and I was really pretty pleased. In fact, I think Tracy said something about the OVC, but we played Eastern Kentucky last year, and I thought it was a little one-sided for a while, and we ended up getting 3 techs in a row. They shot, I don't know, 6 free throws and got a 20-point lead, and we came back and tied it up and went into double overtime and unfortunately lost 100-96. But it seemed like everything after that really kind of settled down, and the officials did a great job, and they got a tough job. I'm not sure I'd want to do it.
Tracy, you've got a unique perspective because you have been a baseball manager, and so you're in Doug's position as a coach per se on the field, and yet you're also an official trying to administer the rules of the game. How has being a baseball manager helped you as a basketball official?
Well, I think it's helped me communication, number one. You know, like Doug said, it's once I have a coach once or twice and they get familiar with me, I think it's easier. Because you know, I have a lot of confidence in my job when I go out on the court. You know, I played the game, and you know, it's funny that my coaching staff, we talk about, I watch an umpire throw the baseball back to a pitcher. That, to me, that tells me right there, has a guy ever played the game before? You know, if he throws it, you know, doesn't have very good form to me, and then, you know, obviously he didn't play the game. And I played basketball. I've played in front of 50,000 people at a baseball game, so the crowd doesn't bother me. You know, I realize I'm going to make mistakes, and if they boo me, they boo me. You know, I've been booed. I've struck out before in front of those 50,000, so I've probably been booed there before. But once a coach, I think, sees me work, you know, I'm not lazy. I get up and down the court. I can run with the players. I have an idea what's going on. I know when, you know, a coach is trying to get the ball inside, and I'm going to focus on that area. I know when they, you know, we recognize shooters. We know who the big guys are on the team, and you know, you don't try not to give the guy a cheap foul. If he's going to get his 3rd foul in the first half, it's going to be a foul. So, you know, I think a coach will realize that, you know, and eventually maybe come in and say, hey, you know, I think we've got guys out there that can do the job. And when they see you come in the 2nd and 3rd time, I think they feel comfortable.
Doug brought up a point a little bit earlier about when a team goes on the road. For the most part, it seems as if the home team gets the benefit of the doubt more often than the road team. As an official, I know you don't like to see that or don't like to think that that's going to happen, but for the most part, it does happen. Why do you think it does?
Well, as an official, I don't think it does. I know it doesn't when I'm officiating. I'm not scared. Like I said, I'm not scared to call what's, you know, what I see, and we talk about before a game. We go over, you know, we go over the players. If IPFW is playing Ball State, we go over the players that IPFW has. You know, this kid's the shooter, this kid's the guy inside. Ball State has the 7-footer or the 6'11" guy. I said, you know, you protect their players. If they foul, you're going to call it. But you know, it has no bearing to me if you're at home or on the road. I think, you know, it tends to. You know, like if IPFW does go to Oregon State, you know, they are going to have Pac-10 officials that, you know, that he's not going to be comfortable with, just like I am when I go on the road with umpires, unless I've seen them before. And to me, maybe it seems that way, and I've been in that situation. I went to NC State, and I used to, you know, I was rooting for the Wolfpack, and if they made bad calls when I was in college, I booed. You know, and I wasn't an official yet, but I realized that when I became official, that's what happens, and. You know, I think for the most part, I don't think officials are trying to do that. Maybe it comes out that way, but I don't know. We talk about plays at halftime that happened the first half. We talk about plays after the game, and I'll come in and the one thing you can't do is make a mistake and just not forget about it. You got to forget about it. You know, and if I make a call at the 10-minute mark of the first half and I miss a foul inside, I've got to forget about it. But when I walk in at halftime, I go, guys, I blew that call at the 10-minute mark, and I'll get it out right away. And that's what we do as partners. You know, it's 3 of you. If you know, if we're a crew right here, Mike, and you make the mistake, you know, to me, the whole crew has made a mistake, and I feel bad when if I miss one, but I can't, you know, I can't dwell on it. I've got to move on because I've got 30 more minutes of the game to call.
Only got time for a couple more questions. Number one, what's toughest call in basketball? Is it still the charge?
I think the block charge. It's getting to the point now, if they hit them, it's a charge to me 90% of the time. But that's with three officials. You've got a guy standing right underneath the basket. He can see whether the guy's moving underneath or not. So I definitely think that's probably the toughest call.
The relationship between the official and the head coach, as you said, Doug, sometimes you try to motivate your team. Tracy, how much do you listen and throw away, and when do you decide enough is enough and it's time to give somebody a tee?
Well, I've got a couple buddies that we referee, and I don't get a lot of technical fouls. I don't listen to the players, and I don't listen to assistant coaches. That's number one. They're not gonna talk to me. If Doug's talking to me, I'll communicate with him. That's not a big deal until he goes over the boundary. And that's the same with me with an umpire. He'll get enough and he'll say, Tracy, that's enough. And I'll turn around and say, Doug, I've heard you now, and I'm not going to listen anymore. And that's it. And I think that's fair. He's trying to coach, and part of coaching is working the officials. And but I'm not listening to players, and I don't expect umpires to listen to my players. And I'll tell them, I'll be upset if you get thrown out of the game for no reason at all.
Oh, I've enjoyed this conversation. Unfortunately, it's time for a break. Tracy, again, thank you ever so much for coming in and talking with Doug and myself today. Continued success both on the baseball diamond, hopefully with the Wizards, or at least somewhere in the San Diego organization, and success on the basketball floor as an official as well.
Well, hope we don't miss too many calls this year. Thanks, Mike.
Our guest has been Tracy Woodson, manager of the Fort Wayne Wizards, also an NCAA Division I official. Time for a break. When we come back, Doug and I are going to talk about this upcoming schedule with a number of interesting opponents. So please stay tuned. Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Cindy Thompson for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Real life is not always a song, and in less time than it takes to play the latest country hit, someone will be injured or killed in an alcohol-related crash. So next time you're out with someone who's been drinking, don't let them take the wheel. Take the keys instead. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
This party isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
It's the most magnificent sight in the universe. This planet full of life and wonder. This planet we call home. As an Earth Team volunteer, you can help the Natural Resources Conservation Service care for it, right in your own community. Call 1-888-LAND-CARE to find out how, because there's just no place like home.
Excuse me. I can't seem to find these anywhere.
Huh. These books are no longer available.
I didn't know.
May I have your name, please?
Why?
Excuse me.
What did I do?
We just have a couple of questions.
Easy, easy.
Stargate. That's the door to other worlds that my character Tilk and the rest of my team use on Stargate SG-1. It's a door to exploration and exciting adventure. An education can provide you with a similar passageway to a world full of possibilities. So stay in school and graduate.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Time now to review the recently completed men's basketball season. And who better to talk men's basketball with us here on Mastodon Spotlight than the head coach of IPFW men's basketball, Doug Knoll. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
It's hard to believe the season's over as far as games being played are concerned. Your thoughts, initial thoughts on the season?
Well, it's one of those things where you look at it in segments, and I think even teams that are in tournaments look at the preseason, the conference season, then the postseason. We don't have the postseason, so we kind of have to look in a couple segments. And and play the front part of the schedule, which is always pretty difficult, or will be for us for a while, and then the back part of the schedule where we use those as our conference games and try to improve on what we do basketball-wise and try to improve our record too, because we're playing mid-major on down. So the season went, when you look at it from September, it seems like a long time, but yet when you look at it to the time we went out to Colorado State for the BCA Invitational, it seems like it went so fast. And really, as we talked with this group early, we told them most people tend to forget what happened at the beginning of the year, but they'll remember what happens at the end of the year, especially if you play well, and they did. And they didn't quit. We had some injuries down the stretch. Rick Wyan during the middle part of the season, and then Jim Kesnick missed the last 6 games. But the kids just stayed with it. They didn't quit. They didn't get discouraged, and we ended up winning. We actually went like 7-7 in our last 14 games in January, February. We went 3-1 in our last 4 games and 5 out of 8. So we really think we can take a lot of this momentum, take it into spring practice in the summer for the workouts for the guys, and then back into next year, and really look forward to a good year next year.
Well, let's break the season down just a little bit. Let's talk about the beginning of the season. I think hopes were high. I think there was excitement on the team. The fact that you were able to go down to was it Colorado State and play in that BC, the Black Coaches Association Invitational, and you had 3 games with Colorado State, with Cleveland State from the Horizon League. Colorado State is a Mountain West team, and I believe Florida, was it Florida? Atlantic International. And you had played Colorado State the previous year, so you knew they were going to be a good team and a tough team. We didn't win the opener, but games 2 and 3 could have gone either way. I think there was a double overtime game against Florida Atlantic, and Cleveland State, you were right in it all the way to the end. But though we came out 0-3, I think things still look good as far as the coaches were concerned in terms of the effort.
Yeah, when you look back, we were a little disappointed that we started off that way, and we were only down about 5 or 6 with Colorado State with 5 minutes to go, and then didn't close the game very well. But Cleveland State, we really had a 5-6 point lead with about 5 minutes to go. With our young team, we just didn't make some stops when we needed to. We didn't get some baskets, and we lost a close game there. And then Florida Atlantic, we had a 13-point lead in the second half. Went into overtime, and at the end of the first overtime, one of their kids hits a 25-footer falling away at the buzzer to go into the second overtime. And so that's, really a tough start for a young team, because you lose a lot of your confidence, and we ended up then, I think, not playing as well as we could have for a stretch, and then we started to get our confidence back a little bit. The Eastern Kentucky game helped us when we were nip and tuck all the way to the end of the game, and we pulled that one out, and then 2 nights later beat Lipscomb on their court. So, those things really helped us a little bit, but that was kind of a slow start for us based on, if we could have had at least 1 win in that invitational, would have helped. 2 would have been huge. But when you look back at, Mike, we were, if you take out the high majors, and I really thought we could have got one game this year, and I think that game was Oregon State at the Coliseum. Again, we had a lead with about 5 minutes to go. Yep. We're only down 3 with a couple minutes to go, and then ended up fouling them and lose by 6 or 7. So we were right there. But we were 9-11 versus high major on down, which includes Butler, Loyola, Chicago, Illinois, Chicago, and those types of teams. And out of the 9-11, we probably had 5 games that we could have won also that were right at the end. So, we didn't. But sometimes you say, what if? And we've played well enough. It could have been kind of an exciting, interesting season as far as wins and losses go. But we've been Division I for 6 months, really, 7 months as far as September 1. So I think out of the gate, we had a pretty good year.
You played some very tough opponents that you had to play on the road because, as you said, we're the new kids on the block. And what a lot of people don't realize looking back, when you play teams the likes of Wyoming and Nebraska and Utah and UNLV and San Diego State and UC Irvine, these are teams that some of them, we'll get in the next segment talk about it, are still alive in postseason play. But battle scars were developed. Looking back now, obviously you would have loved to have played some of those games at home, but we just couldn't. Are you happy now that you scheduled these teams to hopefully have your team learn what it's all about?
Yeah. It's really a catch-22 because, we know from the entire athletic department, right now in our situation we have to make some money. And we're able to do that. We're able to go out and play some big guarantee games against, high opponents, and basically they pay for wins, and if they don't win, they're not going to play again or pay again. And so those are kind of some of the things that we have to go through in our growing pains. I'm willing to do that at this point in time because I want to see all of this be successful. I want to see our athletic program and IPFW get off the ground and then become very successful, because I really believe we can be successful, and the entire athletic department can. And it's going to bring a lot of excitement to the Fort Wayne area. And this town, I think, can handle Division I athletics, and so we're just going to keep working hard to do that. But the other thing is you want to stretch the kids as far as they can stretch, because I think it makes them tougher, it makes them better when you play the teams that are more on your level. But at the same time, they're also very, I think, I'm trying to think of the word I want, fragile, I guess, is a good word. That especially new kids, you don't want to beat them down too much, or sometimes they can't get up. And so you take that fine line of trying to play these games and then trying to schedule other games. And I think it wasn't bad. You look at a few instances, and I think we may have been 3-15 at one point, mostly high majors, and Butler's not even considered a high major, and they could go a long way in the tournament. So they're more of a mid-major, as well as the Horizon League, and that's all going to help us, I think, down the road. It helps us for recruiting when we can go out. We played Wyoming to 11, Vegas to 12, Oregon State to 6 or 7, and some of the others we played good for spurts. We were down 2 against Nebraska at half and didn't shoot our first free throw till 6 minutes to go in the game. So that all helped, and I think we saw that if we can use some of those experiences when we get into games of teams more of on our level, then hopefully we can beat them, and that's what we did towards the end of the year.
Let's talk about the last third of the season real briefly before we finish this segment. And this is where I feel this team really came of age, because, as you said, now you're playing teams more of your caliber. No disrespect to the other higher schools, no disrespect to the schools we played, but this team came together, and I think a lot of that had to do with the maturation of one David Simon.
No doubt, as well as some of the other freshmen. Right. But Dave especially, one of the most difficult things to do with new programs are inherit or recruit big kids. Big kids get over-recruited. You see kids that you don't think really could even play at our place, and they're being recruited by high majors. And they're trying to get big kids in because there's not a lot of real good big kids, and they want to try at least to develop them. So we've been very fortunate. Jim Kesnick has been a developmental player, was recruited as a Division II player, but has made himself a nice Division I player. Fortunately or unfortunately, if he can stay healthy now, his senior year, it's going to be great. But his sophomore year, he broke his foot and started slow, and then the last 6 games this year, he had mono with an enlarged spleen, and obviously he couldn't play. But and that's why you see Valparaiso going overseas to get a lot of foreign kids that are big, because to the foreign kids, they could be Duke as far as they're concerned. I mean, it's Valparaiso, and they play a good schedule, and they usually get to the tournament, so why not? But we're very fortunate to get a player in like Dave Simon, and Dave really grew. I mean, he played volleyball at Loyola Chicago his freshman year. His sophomore year, he set out his redshirt year, and then 2 weeks after the season, blew his knee out, tore his ACL, and so he missed all of spring practice, summer, and then fall with us, although he was in rehab. We didn't get him till really late September, and so we were just about into practice itself, and he didn't even start early in the year. So we just tried to bring him along slow and not rush things, but by the time we really got towards Christmas, you could see some things, Mike, that really kind of intrigued you. And then, of course, we had Cliff Livingston on our staff, who played in the NBA for 12, 13 years, who each day really, I think, helped our big kids mature. And towards the end of the year, I mean, we all know, that against Wright State on senior day at the Coliseum, he had 24 points, 15 rebounds. And then when we went to Maine, I thought he was very average, and I looked at the box score, and he had 26 and 11. And then Vegas, really, the start of January, he had 23 and 11 rebounds against 23 points, 11 rebounds against UNLV. And I think that was really a situation that got him some big-time confidence playing against those teams. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, our program has a long way to go, but in all the games that we played, Nebraska, Utah, UNLV, Wyoming, San Diego State, I mean, you get Butler, you go down the line, I wouldn't trade Kess and Dave for any two players even up on any team right now. And Jim's got 1 year, Dave's got 2, but I think that really speaks highly of our big kids. And if we get some good guard play next year, I really think we can do some things, but we've also got to get some depth, and that's helped a little bit with another 6'10" kid we have coming in, and a few more other big kids. So, we're going to work on that. But I tell you what, when you look, Dave has 2 more years, it's pretty exciting right now. We're just hoping he doesn't go early into the NBA.
Hopefully not. We're discussing the recently completed men's basketball season here at IPFW with head coach Doug Knoll. We'll take a short break, and then we'll resume our discussion when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
I wasn't going to school because I was making money stealing cars. Well, I was 10 when I first got involved with drugs. I skipped school because, nobody cared.
When I first got pregnant, school was not important to me, so I dropped out.
Well, if I don't finish school, then I can't go to college. I mean, that's the whole point of what I want to do with my life.
I still need to go to school to make it for myself.
I think I'm happier now. I know I'm happier now.
Movie star heroes get to make some pretty amazing saves. Hi, I'm Kelly Hu for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. I'm here to tell you about an easy way to be a hero in real life. Keep a friend who's been drinking from getting behind the wheel. Even if they've only had 1 or 2, they're more likely to cause a crash and injure or even kill someone. So take their keys, call a cab, or drive them home. Remember, friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Kids, here's my favorite animal. Strong, intelligent, ethical, dependable, compassionate, and patriotic. By the way, where's John?
Intelligent, strong, ethical, dependable, compassionate, and patriotic.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
When I was senator, I did a lot
After that, I was able to orbit the Earth in a great big rocket ship.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Places that comfort us with their serenity. Places that astound us with their beauty. Places where our memories come to life. Precious places, timeless places, places that with your help can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
I was a liberal arts major in college.
I didn't speak a second language.
What could I?
What could I offer the Peace Corps?
The answer surprised me. I served in South Africa teaching HIV/AIDS awareness.
Working with my students in Nicaragua was a great experience. We taught each other a lot about our countries and cultures.
This is the Peace Corps today.
Redefine your world. Join the Peace Corps.
Apply now at peacecorps.gov.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're reviewing the recently completed men's basketball season with head coach Doug Knoll. And Doug, before we talk about some of the players, I've got to ask you what it was like The final week, excluding the main game, prior to the main game, we had 3 home games to close out the home season with Centenary, Chicago State, and Wright State. And we won them all. And I tell you, I've been involved with this university for 5 years now, being fortunate to broadcast athletic events. The feeling on campus was unbelievable that week. What were your thoughts and feelings as a coach to see this team gel and to play as well as they did that final week?
Well, you know, it's always hard when you're right there in the mix because you never sit back and say, oh, this is great, I'm really enjoying it. What you do is you know, when you win a game, you kind of breathe a sigh of relief like, okay, we got that one, let's go get the next one. And really when you have a game Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and that's independent scheduling for us, you know, where we're at right now, we didn't have time to really sit back and even enjoy the wins because, you know, right after the Tuesday night Centenary game, our staff went right into the meeting rooms and started evaluating that game for just a brief amount of time and then turned our attention to Chicago State right away and worked on Chicago State on that Tuesday night, all day Wednesday, and then up to the Thursday game. Played that game, and then the same thing. Thursday night, we reviewed a little bit, then went right into the Wright State scouting report. Did that Thursday night, Friday, and then Saturday at 1 we played, so we even had a less turnaround time. It was nice Saturday afternoon, about 4 o'clock. I know you guys were on tape delay, and it was a snowstorm out. You were on tape delay on the radio because Notre Dame was playing, but there was a snowstorm, and somebody told me the wrong restaurant to go eat at, namely my wife. But so I drove out to the one way out on 24 and ended up driving around for an hour and listening to you guys on the radio. But that was probably as great a moment or moments that we've experienced here since I've been here, because it's been really a struggle. And you know, the light at the end of the tunnel with D'Angelo and Brad and senior day, and D'Angelo played great and had a couple dunks, and Brad got his 1,000th point with about 20 seconds to go, and of course everybody was cheering him on for that, and we were milking that a little bit.
Including a supposedly unbiased announcer.
and really, believe it or not, you know, it was a TV game for Wright State, and they shot it back to Dayton area, and I know there was a lot of people that got that game. The announcers did a great job of really being positive with our team and talked about the teammates and everything. So it was one of those weeks where you know, I guess it was fitting for, you know, Brad and D'Angelo to go out, and I'm just really thrilled that, you know, they had some success late in their career, and you know, you just look at that. Unfortunately, we had to go to Maine, and with all the emotions of that week, mentally and physically, we just we didn't play well, and I wasn't too concerned about it because I knew when you peak, when you get to that point and everything goes well, you know, it just drops off the table, and that's, you know, the game was, I don't want to say meaningless, but you know, it would have been nice to end on that Saturday game, but we didn't. But it was a good finish to the season for us.
Let's talk briefly. You mentioned Brad and D'Angelo. They're seniors. They gave 4 years, blood, guts, and you know what, to the program. Briefly, your thoughts on those two, because now they are technically classified as alumni.
That's right. Well, you know, I have the utmost respect for both of them. They've really come through a lot of not necessarily turmoil, but just a lot of tough times. You know, where you get beat down, and with the Division II having, you know, partial scholarships and half of what some of the other teams in the GLVC had. And then going into Division I, which was exciting, but at the same time, you know, playing all these high-ranked and high-major teams. You know, nothing was easy for them in 4 years, but I really believe that that's going to be something that they're going to really benefit from, because when they go out and work and have jobs and do what they need to do, life will probably seem pretty easy for them, because this was tough. But I think they've grown a lot, and they really saw a lot of the struggles, and I think their strength has built up through these tough times. And as they say, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And I think they'll really benefit from that. And I think they've had a great career. They both played a lot. They both brought so much to our program, not only through the basketball, but through the academics and just being great kids. And And so just really pleased with how they finished, and I was glad for them. And again, for them, they're not going to think about all the tough times in their career as much as they'll think about how good the finish was. And I think that's just really apropos for them to walk out of here, and they'll be tough to replace because they were captains for 3 years, but they also built a foundation for our program, and it'll do nothing but go up, and we owe them a lot.
We've got about 3 minutes left in this segment, unfortunately, so we're going to try to cram a lot into 3 minutes. Briefly, some of the returning players for next year, and we can't underscore the growing of the other freshmen on the teams, people like a Brandon Jennings, like a Tyler Clevenger, Kyle Thrasher, and some of the others. Briefly talk about some of the kids coming back, some of the kids you've been able to sign that we can announce, and talk about what's ahead for IPFW men's basketball.
Well, I think it's pretty exciting. When you only lose 2 kids, and we're only going to lose 2 seniors again next year, we're really trying to get a good group at the base. We're trying right now, Mike, to do it solely by bringing in freshmen, and that takes a little longer. But I think in the long run, it's going to be a lot better because the slower process will bring us, great kids, great student athletes, and we're really excited about that. We got 9 returners coming back, starting with Jim Kesnick, who was out the last 6 games, and our leading scorer. He had 19 points, 9 rebounds in the Youngstown State game, and then all of a sudden 2 days later he can't play. His running mate and apartment buddy, Keon Henderson, will be back now after sitting out a whole year because of knee surgery, actually 2 knee surgeries. So we're hoping Keon makes a healthy recovery. Of course, our sophomore class this year was pretty good. Now they become our junior class of Dave Simon, Rick Wyan, and Terry Collins. And, Rick had 23 and 10 against Wright State, and we had 2 guys with double-doubles. Terry's played a little sporadic his sophomore year, but he went for 36 against Irvine, 29 points, 12 rebounds against IUPUI. So Terry can do it, and we may even look this summer to get him a little bit of experience at the point guard position next year, because we think with him and Tyler, that would be a pretty good combination. And then our freshmen. I'm not sure, and I've never looked this up, so I don't want to say for sure, but I'm not sure there's 4 freshmen on any Division I team in the country that all average double-figure minutes. But our 4 freshmen did, with Tyler Clevenger, Kyle Thrasher, Brandon Jennings, and Quentin Carruthers. And they all averaged over 10 minutes a game, which is just very valuable for them. We may redshirt one of them, even though they're sophomores, to give them another year development. But they really had some benefits of jumping in and playing a lot this year, and I think that's going to be a key. And then we signed 3 early. We signed a point guard out of Indianapolis North Central, Byron Malone, a 6-foot left-handed guard. We signed a 6'7" shooter out of Yorktown, Indiana, and Muncie area, Pete Campbell. And he had 46 on Fort Wayne this year, had 30 on Newcastle, so he can light it up. And we had signed a 6'10" kid out of Malacca, Minnesota, Eric Bergstrom. And Eric's about 230, 240. He'll back up Dave right away, but I really think he's going to get some key minutes too. So we've got 1 more scholarship to give, and we have 3 players that we really like, and we're going to try to get all 3 of them in, and then kind of stagger their scholarships if they'll come in and walk on for a year. We've got some kids that we think will really fit in well here, because I'd like to bring 3 more in and get to 15, because I really think our numbers need to be there based on injury each year, and we had 9 this year for like the last 3 weeks, and you just can't practice. So we want to get up to 15, and that's not going to be too many bodies running around, but I really think that's going to help us out, and we're really looking forward to getting back into practice in the spring after the Final Four is over, and start getting these guys back into the summer. They're all excited, so we've got Oregon State, Washington State quickly. We're at Iowa State's tournament. We're at Purdue's tournament. We're playing West Virginia and Miami of Florida out of the Big East, so another challenging schedule, Mike. Just really pretty easy again this year. But
pretty easy.
As we grow, we're going to get better, and competition keeps getting better. So a lot of times, we tripled our Division I wins, we tripled our road wins, and I think all in all, we're taking steps in the right direction.
As always, it's been fun. Thanks for all your help and cooperation this year, for coming on our show, for the TV games, and for the radio. And enjoy the spring. We'll have you back roughly in about 4, 5, 6 weeks If you have any other signings or we get the schedule completed, we'll have you back just before school's over and talk about the schedule in more detail. But thanks for all the help.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for all your staff and all the guys here at TV 56 for all their hard work this year.
We've been visiting with head men's basketball coach Doug Knoll. We thank Doug for coming on the program all these weeks during the basketball season. We also want to thank Tracy Woodson, manager of the Fort Wayne Wizards, for appearing in an earlier segment. And as always, we thank you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. We invite you to come back again next week. We're going to talk with Bruce Patterson, review the women's basketball season, and we're going to bring Judy Tillapaw back from Fitness and Wellness to talk about the upcoming health fair that's going to take place at the end of this month here at IPFW. That's it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Again, thanks for tuning in. Until next week, this is Mike Moss saying have a great week and go Dons. Well, spring break is now come and gone. Students are back on campus here at IPFW, and that means the athletic teams are back on campus as well. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we'll take a look back and see how the teams that traveled south last week fared, baseball, softball, tennis. And we're going to do a review of the recently completed women's basketball season with head coach Bruce Patterson. And at the end of the program, we're going to talk about the 14th annual health fair that's going to take place next week over at the Walp Student Union building. We're going to have a couple of ladies on to talk about that as well. So that's the menu for this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Stay tuned. We'll begin our program in just a moment right here on College 56 Sports.
I like to volunteer with the Neighborhood Emergency Response Team to help the firefighters. As you know, I was Fireman of the Year 3 times.
You're Mariano Rivera.
Thank you.
Fireman of the Year is a baseball award.
Yes.
You're not actually a fireman.
No.
Fireman of the Year, huh?
Just a few more minutes.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, spring break is now come and gone. Students are back in class, and that also means that our athletic teams are back home as well. And we had our baseball team and our softball team down in Florida, and our men's and women's tennis team was at Hilton Head, South Carolina. We'll review those in a moment and see, talk about what happened last week. But we're going to start our weekly review of what took place with the men's volleyball team. Coach Arnie Ball's squad only had one match last week, a match we televised here on Channel 56, as the Volleydons took on the 5th-ranked Flyers of Lewis University, leaders of the MIVA. They came into the match with a record of 17-4, 8-0 in conference play. And they showed the fans in attendance and the viewing audience why they are leading the MIVA and why they're ranked 5th in the country, as they defeated IPFW in straight sets by scores of 30-24, 30-21, and 30-26. Sets 1 and 3 were close, could have gone either way, especially set number 3. As I commented to a couple of the coaches afterwards, there were 12 occasions in set number 3 where IPFW was down 1 point in the set and had the serve. And unfortunately, 12 times in a row, they were thwarted by the Lewis Flyers. For the second week in a row, our opponent came in having had a member of the team who was the MIVA Player of the Week. For Lewis, it was Gustavo Meyer. and he had 11 kills. They were led by Jeff Soler, who had 13 kills, and their setter, Jose Martins, had a real good match. He had 45 assists. For IPFW, Jeff Patak had a nice night. The senior from Hamburg, New York, had 22 kills, and that was coming off a 27-kill performance the week earlier with Ohio State. So Jeff is finally getting back into form and playing well. Ryan Staley played the setter position in place of Dennis Santiago, and Ryan did quite well. He had 39 assists. But the rest of the attack just wasn't really there. Matt Zubashevsky and Angel Ruiz had 8 kills apiece. But Lewis is just a pretty good team, and they improved to 18-4, 9-0 in the conference. IPFW dropped to 7-7, 500 overall, 4-5 in conference play. They currently stand in 6th place in the conference. Now they go on the road for the next 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks rather. They're going to play 5 matches on the road. This weekend they're going to go to Loyola of Chicago, who is in 2nd place in the conference, having only lost 1 conference match on Friday night. And then Saturday they're going to go to Dubuque, Iowa, and take on Clark College, a team they defeated earlier this year, and a team that they've never lost to. They're 23-0 against Clark. So hopefully good things will happen, and then next week they'll be back on the road taking on Lewis and Quincy, but we'll talk about that next week. That's men's volleyball. Again, they're 7-7, and now they're going to live on the road for a couple of weeks. Billy Gurdon's baseball team was down in Florida, and we briefly mentioned last week that Mother Nature was playing havoc with the team as they had a scheduled game in Georgia rained out. They had one of their games with Harvard University rained out. They did finally get to play, and they did rather well. They had a 4-4 tie with St. Francis of PA, a game that, interestingly, I thought was called because of weather, and I found out it wasn't weather. It was a time limit due to the number of teams that were playing in the tournament down in Florida. So that game ended in a 4-4 tie. Then they took 2 straight from Lehigh University. They won 4-2 and 10-4. And then defeated Bucknell 9-7, so they won 3 games in a row. Then they lost to Northern Iowa 14-3, and then split 2 games with Rhode Island, winning 4-0 and losing 7-4. And then they finished the trip out with an 8-3 loss to Yale. So, but overall, as they get ready to play this week, and weather permitting, they'll play matches against 2 Mid-American Conference schools, Toledo and Central Michigan. Billy Gurnon's team is 5-5-1, so team's off to a relatively good start, and we wish them well this week. Keith Fisher's softball team, we said, was down in Florida as well. And they also got bit by the weather bug initially as they lost a couple of games. One against Maine was rained out. But they were able to continue their trip. They lost to Quinnipiac 2-0. They lost to Lehigh 6-0. They lost to Providence 10-4. They lost to Austin P 5-4, but then they beat St. Joe of PA 5-4. Lost to Tennessee Martin 11-1, and then they came back and finished the trip with 2 victories. They beat Niagara, shut out Niagara 8-0, and then defeated the Quakers of the University of Pennsylvania 6-5. So they finally came home. They have a record of 5-8. And they are scheduled this weekend. Later this week, they're going to play down in Terre Haute against Indiana State. And then this weekend, they're going to go to West Lafayette, and they're going to take part in a tournament at Purdue. First up is going to be a game against defending Big Ten champion Michigan. Wolverines have been to the Women's College World Series 3 times in the last 4 years. They're also going to play Loyola of Chicago, Butler, and finish off their tournament against the Boilermakers of Purdue. So we wish them well in their trips this week. And then finally, Coach Eric Burns' men's and women's tennis teams traveled to Hilton Head, South Carolina. And the men's team played 4 matches. Unfortunately, they lost 3 of them to UNC Wilmington, to Bucknell, and to Penn State. But they did defeat Stonehill College to finish off the trip on a high note. The women's team wasn't as fortunate. They played 3 matches and lost them all to Evansville, Western Carolina, and Bucknell. But as Eric mentioned off air, they are gaining valuable experience, and hopefully things are going to get better for the tennis team as time goes along. That's what's happened with athletics here at IPFW this past week, I should say. Teams are in action this weekend. A week from Friday, the track and field outdoor season opens up, and we hope to have Rick Norton here in a few weeks to talk about the track and field team as well. But time now for a break, and when we come back, we're going to review the recently completed women's basketball season with head coach Bruce Patterson. And that discussion will begin when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Good morning. I appreciate you all being here today. This is a really neat day for IPFW athletics, and we're very proud to make an announcement. Arnie Ball has been a part of IPFW athletics for 23 years. That's hard to believe, but it says a lot about Arnie's dedication to IPFW and the success that he has had here. Today we're announcing that Arnie has been named the head coach of the USA's men's volleyball team that will compete in the 2003 World University Games in South Korea. Those games take place in late August, and this decision was arrived at by a joint decision by USA Volleyball and the United States Olympics Committee. Obviously, it's a great honor for Arnie, it's a great honor for his family, and a great honor for IPFW athletics. Arnie has established the kind of program here at IPFW that all of our coaches look to and emulate in terms of success, both on and off the court. You know his record on the court. Let me just emphasize that Arnie also, his team this fall carried a 3.0 grade point average, and he also has a student who had a perfect 4.0 this fall. So we're very proud of him for his past accomplishments, and we're clearly very proud and excited about his future endeavors. Arnie?
Thanks, Mark. First of all, let me say that I'm very, very appreciative to IPFW, Chancellor Wartell, and Mark for giving me an opportunity to do this. This opportunity doesn't come along, obviously, too often. The games are held every other year, the year before and after the Olympics. This will be the 5th World University Games I've had a chance to participate in, the second as the head coach. I would also tell you that just last weekend that I was in Tampa for meetings with the USOC, and they tell us now that we don't wear anything like this, so that indeed you don't, the people don't know that you're an American. They also talked about at the Olympic Village that we will stay in South Korea, that it used to be that all the teams and all the countries wanted to stay next to the USA. Now nobody wants to be close to the USA, so it might be an interesting experience in South Korea in August. This team will actually come together at the end of June 29th in Colorado Springs. My staff and I will select approximately 30 athletes at this point, get it down to 20 to invite to camp, and end up taking 12 to Japan on July 23rd. We're actually going to make a domestic tour in Japan in 6 different cities, playing the Japanese national team in preparation for the World University Games. That's the first time in my knowledge that that's happened with this particular team. Most generally we have to stay in Colorado Springs and play against the national team, but getting international experience of this caliber certainly will help prepare us for the games in South Korea. The actual games themselves are going to be in Dagao, which is about 100 miles southwest of Seoul. Everybody asked me where that's at, and I didn't have a clue either until this weekend, but it's about 100 miles south of Seoul. There will be approximately 10,000 athletes at the competition, at the games, from all over the world. The U.S. will have about 200 of all 14 different sports, I think, that are going from the U.S., but there will be 10,000 people there. There will be an Olympic Village like there normally is, and it will be a wonderful opportunity for some of our student athletes, of which Jeff Patak will be invited to this team, to be a part of this team, one of our players, to train and to play at the highest level internationally. The World University Games are the second largest participation sport or games in the world next to the Olympics. unfortunately, it's not held here in the U.S. very often, so people don't really realize the extent that the games are. And obviously, it's an opportunity not only for our athletes to go play, but for our athletes to get an opportunity to meet other athletes from our own country and from around the world. And one of the reasons for a little bit of success that we've had here at IPFW is an opportunity for myself and the university to allow me to go and do these different games so that you get a chance to not only work with world-class athletes, but to tell them about IPFW and our community and the kind of things that we have to offer. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. Mark, once again, for all your work, and the Chancellor. And I know we have some pizza back here, and we'll be glad to talk to you on an individual basis at this point. Thank you, everybody.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Places that comfort us with their serenity. Places that astound us with their beauty. Places where our memories come to life. Precious places. Timeless places. Places that with your help can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
I was a liberal arts major in college.
I didn't speak a second language.
What could I?
What could I offer the Peace Corps?
The answer surprised me. I served in South Africa teaching HIV/AIDS awareness.
Working with my students in Nicaragua was a great experience. We taught each other a lot about our countries and cultures.
This is the Peace Corps today.
Redefine your world. Join the Peace Corps.
Apply now at peacecorps.gov.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. As we did last week when we reviewed the recently completed men's basketball season, this week we're going to review the women's basketball season. And we're happy to have back on the program with us the head coach of IPFW women's basketball, Bruce Patterson. Welcome back.
Well, thank you.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Doug last week. Is it hard to believe that your season is finally over?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great season. We enjoyed ourselves and had a good time, but the respite is always nice too.
Well, what I want to do in the first segment is review the season, because there were some good points and some not so good points, and so let's go right into it. You opened the season by making a trip up to the Twin Cities, and you took on the Golden Gophers of the University of Minnesota. Big Ten school, big school, a couple of good players, and I know this. If we look at the score, and we talked about this way back when, 116-73 didn't sound like a good score, but you had mentioned that it was a good start considering the opposition.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that we played pretty well up there. We played as hard as we could. That was obviously a physical mismatch. They were bigger, stronger. Had the Whalen kid, who's a guard, who was the Big Ten Player of the Year before that. They're a team that's in the NCAA tournament this year. I think they finished second in the Big Ten or something like that. So that was very, very formidable competition, considering the fact that we had 8 freshmen, of which I know at one point during that game I looked at my assistants and said, hey, I think we got 5 freshmen on the court against a team of this, the 15th ranked team in the country, who down there is drinking the wrong stuff. But it was a great experience. We played hard, we played well. We got a team in the second round that was not very good, and we were able to win a basketball game, and so that we considered to be the trip to be a very big success for us.
Yeah, you lost to Minnesota, but you beat Savannah State, so you split there. We had the home opener, and I know looking back it was disappointing when you lose on a 3-point shot with a 2-point lead with 12 seconds to go. But at least we finally got to play at home. Tough one. I know that you strive to have mental toughness built into your team as the year goes along, but then you got right back on the road, went down to College Station, Texas, and split 2 more games. You lost to Texas A&M, but you beat Arkansas Little Rock. So you're out of the box, you're 2-3. And then we started a long string of road games. And there were games that, for the most part, we were competitive most of the way. And just unfortunate that we just didn't get many W's. We had a lot of L's. But we went to Toledo and lost 64-57. We went to Detroit, and I know we talked about it coming over to the studio. That's a game that we had until Amy Geralds got hurt. And we still had the lead at halftime, and we were tied with 12 minutes to go, and then it just didn't work out. Lost that one, lost to Bowling Green. Then went to Louisville. Then we had what I thought at the time was the high point of the season, taking on nationally ranked Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And for 7 minutes, we were right with them. Muffet even called a timeout, I think, at one point. And then they got the upper hand, and they had a strong inside game and beat us. And then you went to Western Michigan, and I just don't know what happened, because Western and Notre Dame, as well as Minnesota, all teams that have qualified for the NCAA tournament. And then probably the low point of the season, Indiana State, which lost in their conference final, but they're in the NIT. And I don't know if we want to talk about the score, but looking back now, a tough stretch of games on the road. That Indiana State game had to be the low point of the season, I would think.
Well, I mean, I don't think we did a very good job scheduling those games, and that's not critical of us necessarily as coaches. I think, and you look back on it, you realize that we just didn't do a very good job. Where they were all on the road. The travel after a while just wears you down. You go into Minnesota, you come back, you get on an airplane, you go down to Texas to play Texas A&M, and then play 2 games down there. You come back, and you have that road game or that home game in between, but that wasn't much of a respite for us. Then you were going out for all these individual games, and I think it was just a building process. We competed very well at Toledo, and I thought we had a chance to win that basketball game. I thought in the end Toledo just stood up and said, no, you're not good enough to beat us up here on our home court, and they took it away from us. The Indiana State game was just a debacle. It was a game that I don't think we coached very well. I don't think the kids played very well. They didn't play with heart throughout the game. It was just it was an awful environment in which they really picked at our scab, is the way I best describe it, in that at that time we were having some problems controlling and hanging on to the basketball. We were turning it over way too many times, and they were a team that pressed you for 94 feet for 40 minutes, and we couldn't do anything right, and they did everything right, and they just beat our brains in. And it's a game that it's a low point, and on the other hand, it may have been the thing that kind of turned us around, because as a coaching staff, we refocused. You wouldn't want to be in practice the next day. We wore them out pretty good, got them back in the gym, and we got their attention, I think, a little bit better because of that. Took a little while for that to turn into W's, but eventually I think it did.
It sure did. We finished the calendar year off. We made a trip to Dayton, took on Wright State, and did everything but beat them. Had the lead down the stretch, and they just scored a few points in the last minute and a half. And then we lost to Murray State. Then we came home and we beat Centenary 91-69, and I think that was a shot in the arm. And as you said, maybe the foundation was set the day after the Indiana State game. Played a couple of tough games. IUPUI, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, a game that we could have won. We had it, and I know we've talked about it before. Late in the game, we had a 1-point lead, missed a layup, and they ended up winning. And then Cleveland State came to town and beat us. At that point, we're 3-15, and I'm sure there might have been some people in the crowd saying, "Wait, what the heck's going on here? 3-15, come on." Mm-hmm. But then things started changing. And we went on a 4-game winning streak. You went on the road to Eastern Illinois, and you won that ball game, 71-68. We came home, a big overtime game with Youngstown State, where that was the game of runs. But we had all kinds of runs both ways. They scored the first 7 points of overtime. We scored the last 7 points of overtime, but at back-to-back wins. And then we took it out, and Lipscomb came to town, and we beat them 88-73. And then you went on the road, and you had a tough trip, but you started it off well. Went to Centenary down in Freeport, Louisiana, and you hung in there and you won 77-75. 4 wins in a row. Confidence was going well. The only bad part was the travel, and that kind of came into play a little bit, as you mentioned on an earlier show. We had to go back from Fort Wayne to Shreveport, back to Fort Wayne, get on a bus, go to Nashville, play Lipscomb, and they beat us. And but then you came back and you had the last 2 home games against Southeast Missouri State and Texas Pan Am, and we won them both. And at that point we were playing real well, 6 out of 7. The only bad part is you had to finish up on the road, and lost to Texas Pan Am 5 days after we played them here, lost to Corpus Christi, and lost to Cleveland State. Now that I've run through the whole schedule, 9 up, 19 down, and looking back, that 9-19 very easily, we could have had 6 or 7 more wins if the breaks went our way.
Well, we went into the season with a goal of winning at least 10 basketball games, and if you'd have told me, told me at the beginning of the year that we were going to win 9 basketball games, I'd have probably said, with 8 freshmen on the squad and only 4 returners, I'd have probably said, we'll take it. Probably a little tongue-in-cheek, but we'll take it, because that, as you get further away from the season, it looks like a good season to you. On the other hand, it was a cyclical season. I mean, some of those games in there, out of those games that you just went through, there's probably another 5 games, 6 games we should have won. Certainly the game that we played early in the year where we lost the 3-pointer at the buzzer, that was a game we should never have lost. That was a bad communication at the end that cost us, but worse than that, it was just a game where we didn't function, we didn't play hard. The Wright State game over there was a game that, frankly, I don't feel like we necessarily got a fair shake out of the deal, but the real truth of it is that we didn't perform as well going down the stretch as we should have. And then even some of the wins, I'll tell you, the Centenary game that we played on the road, we won that basketball game, but frankly, we didn't deserve to win that basketball game. That's a game that we just got on a burst at the end, and the kids believed they were going to win, and they won it. But the cycle that took place with these young kids, you could almost see as soon as we traveled awful. We actually went at the end, if we could avoid overnight travel, we did. And that really, I think, is a function of youth. Kids go out there and they don't know how to sleep in the hotel room. And I don't mean that they're out partying because we got control over that. They're not doing that. And we know that there are lights out. We know that. I mean, we can check that. But still, it's an art to learn how to live in and live out of a hotel room, and this group did not do that very well. So the travel just killed us. I mean, the best example of that is Lipscomb. We played Lipscomb here, and true, we had some travel in between that they didn't have, and they got to go home and prepare. But if you just saw the 2 games, I mean, the game up here was one we controlled from the beginning buzzer to the end of the buzzer, and we just outplayed them almost in every facet of the ball game. Went down there, he could say exactly the same thing. They outplayed us in every facet of the basketball game, and it was true. And that was just and it wasn't just our travel. If you think about it, they got the travel coming the other way. It's hard to travel at this level. It takes a very mature team to do that, and that certainly is part that we missed. We lacked that maturity.
Well, one other quick way to look at it as a positive improvement from 4-23 to 9-19. And that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's. I said that's exponential growth. From the 3 times 3 is 9. Now all you got to do is 9 times. No, I don't think we can go that far. But we had a lot of growth this year. We grew up as a basketball team. We grew up as a basketball program, and now we know what we have to prepare for from now until next November. And I think that will help us a lot in our off-season preparation, because this is when players get better. And if they don't use this next 6-7 months to make themselves better, then shame on us.
We're talking about the recently completed women's basketball season with head coach Bruce Patterson. We'll take a short break and resume our discussion when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Cindy Thompson for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Real life is not always a song, and in less time than it takes to play the latest country hit, someone will be injured or killed in an alcohol-related crash. So next time you're out with someone who's been drinking, don't let them take the wheel. Take the keys instead. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
This party isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
It's the most magnificent sight in the universe. This planet full of life and wonder. This planet we call home. As an Earth Team volunteer, you can help the Natural Resource Conservation Service care for it, right in your own community. Call 1-888-LAND-CARE to find out how, because there's just no place like home.
Excuse me, I can't seem to find these anywhere.
These books are no longer available.
I didn't know.
May I have your name, please?
Why?
Excuse me.
What did I do?
We just have a couple of questions.
Easy, easy.
A Stargate. That's the door to other worlds that my character Teal'c and the rest of my team use on Stargate SG-1. It's a door to exploration and exciting adventure. An education can provide you with a similar passageway to a world full of possibilities. So stay in school and graduate.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're discussing the recently completed women's basketball season with head coach Bruce Patterson. We just really went over the schedule and how the team did as far as the score goes, but now let's go in a little bit different direction. You and your staff had a big challenge this year. First actual full year of Division I competition. You had one senior. You had two juniors, one of which couldn't play until the Notre Dame game. A couple of sophomores, and 8 freshmen. That would have sent some people to the insane asylum. But looking back, talk about the challenge that you and Chris and Kurt and Alan had working with these young women and getting them indoctrinated into Division I basketball.
Well, there's actually probably 3 elements to that, Mike. One is obviously you're bringing them in and they got to learn your systems. So you know they walk out of high school systems. One may want to run, one wants to walk, one wants to play defense hard and man-to-man, one wants to play zone, and they got to get to doing what you want them to do. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is teaching them how to emotionally get prepared, and that's really hard to understand that every time you walk on the court. I mean, every team you play, it may be a team that's 2-15 at the time you play them, but if you don't come ready to play, those are still Division I athletes that are over there playing against you, and they're going to play and they're going to make shots that you leave them have. And so emotionally, you got to teach kids. You can't take days off, games off, you can't take minutes off, you can't take any time off. You got to play hard the whole time, and that's so different than it is in high school, especially for the caliber of athlete who usually is better than most of the people they played with. All right? And the third thing that you have to get them used to is the extensive travel, to learn how to go out and to be on the road and to eat the right foods and to take care of themselves, because young kids, quite frankly, don't take care of themselves very well. You know, I know that later on you're going to have Judy in here talking about health issues. We spend a lot of time talking to the kids about the things they eat. I mean, we literally, I mean, this sounds terrible, but you're going into a buffet to have meat, and then you're walking over looking on their plate saying, you know, why you got that bunch of stuff there that you shouldn't be eating. You got to eat the right stuff to perform to the level. And I don't mean just eating, but you got to prepare yourself in so many different ways and take care of yourself. So you got to help kids learn how to do that. So it's really a substantial challenge to bring in that many young kids. Hopefully next year those kids are teaching the new young kids how to act and how to do those things.
I think one point we also should make is, besides eating right, traveling, playing basketball, they still are student athletes. Mm-hmm. And I know that you and the staff are proud of the fact that academically they did very well.
We did extraordinarily well first semester, and we see even better results in the second semester, though albeit a shortened semester. We only get midterms about now, and we got another midterm report. It actually goes out on Friday, so we'll be getting another set of reports back. But you know, our average GPA was 3.03, and that's an increase of almost a full point. It was 2.1 or 2.2 last year. We had nobody that was, I mean, last year we had 2 kids academically going eligible in December. This year nobody was even close to going academically ineligible. We had 7 kids that were over a 3.0, and I give all the credit in the world to the guy that runs our study table. Al Buck runs the study table like a general. These kids are instructed, they know that they're there to study, and that's what they're going to do, and they've got to make sure that all their things are in, and so we've done a great job with that, making sure that they're ready. And that really started from the head of the department. Mark Pope is big on making sure these kids get through school and do well in the classroom, and it's filtered down to every program, and we're trying to make sure that that continues.
Well, let's look ahead now to the coming season. We lost 1 player, Tiara Dudley, to graduation, and I know T's going to be missed in a number of ways, and I thought it was great what was done, the final home game, and that was just, you know, really neat there. But you got most everybody coming back. Let's look ahead. Talk about what you hope to see happen from, we'll start with the returning players and then any new players that you can mention.
Well, before I go forward, I'd like to go back for one
Okay.
second. I mean, T is special to us. She's, you know, one of the, you know, we had a couple graduating last year, but T is very special, and I know that T didn't get as much playing time this year as she'd like because she was in a kind of a bad position, but she's one of the great leaders and one of the great people, and she will represent IPFW to make all of us happy. So I am proud. So I need to make sure that plug is in there because I think the world of her. Going forward, you know, we've got a great nucleus of kids. You know, if the kids, it just really is in their hands right now. The NCAA makes sure that we can't mandate them doing a lot of things between now and the off season. So they've got to make a mental decision. Do they want to get better? And they've got now about 6 months to make themselves better. And this is when players, as individual players, become better. You know, the seasons for the team, the time between the seasons is for the players to become better, and so they got a lot of things they got to work on. They got to become stronger, they got to become faster, they got to learn to jump higher, they got to learn to do a lot of things better if we're going to compete with the Louisvilles and the Kentuckys and those people that we got. So, you know, we're excited about that. We've got 2 young kids that are signed to come in here that signed back in the fall that we're excited about. One of them was the point guard for the state championship Kokomo team, Kokomo High School team, by the name of Ashley Johnson. We think she'll be a very significant addition to this ball team. She'll give us some good backup at the point guard. She can play defense. She doesn't turn the ball over a lot. She's a good, heady, smart player, so we're excited about that. And we got another big kid coming in from Chicago that we've actually talked about redshirting her for the year, but we'll find out when she gets in here. You know, if she comes in here and is big enough, strong enough, fast enough to compete, who knows? She may get her time on the court. So we're excited about that. And we've got a couple other kids that we're talking to that obviously I can't talk about here, and that you know, if we can get 1 or 2 of them, we'll add to our athleticism, and that's what we're out to do.
And you've got a good core of returning players, and let's start with the 2 seniors. You got Amy Geralds, who was leading scorer, averaged just over 15 points a game, and hopefully, knock on wood, you'll get a full season from Maggie Bruning at the point.
Well, I'll start from the second one first. If I don't know where you said hopefully. I mean,
well, knock on wood, meaning no injuries or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be nice that you're going to be able to have Maggie, and she made a difference, no doubt about it. When she was eligible to play for us, she made a difference on the floor.
Yeah, playing the first games without Maggie was hard, and I don't mean that because I thought that Jenny Green, when we started her at point up in Minnesota, a freshman that really is not best suited to be a point guard, I thought she did an absolutely awesome job. She worked hard, and she tried to do all the things she could do, and as did Jessica and other people. But Maggie is a difference maker. Maggie's she's a tough kid who's going to go out and tough it out with you, and she knows she's good, and she goes out and she puts it on the court, and she tries to make people around her better. So that will be huge to be able to have her for 28 games next year. Amy Gerald's maybe one of the best athletes I've ever been around. I mean, Amy can run fast, she can jump high, she's stronger in a bull, there's also many things she can do. We're asking her to do more next year. You know, this is not a secret between anybody, because Amy and I have talked about it time and again. Amy could be the best defensive player in the conference, and yet she doesn't necessarily sometimes the best defender in the conference or in NCAA. So we're asking her to be more. And she's very capable of it, and we expect big thing out of those two kids.
And you've got some juniors. Faria Bibbs really came into her own late in the season.
She's a sophomore, by the way.
Well, she's going to be a junior next year, though.
Right, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And you got,
didn't understand what you were saying.
Well, not many people do. I confuse a lot of people. But you got V going to come back. You've got Courtney Nicely going to come back as a junior next year. And I know she showed some good signs once she got healthy. Of course, she had the bone spur problem this year. Hopefully, if her health is good and stays intact, I know you're excited about her contributions, or potential contributions next year.
Courtney Nicely is, Courtney can be anything she wants to be. I mean, you're talking about a kid, we hope she becomes a more consistent three-point threat. But she can she can get off her shot. She's one of the few kids we get that can manufacture a shot anytime she wants it. And she plays hard. She's a good defender, got good leaping ability. She can rebound the basketball. A little slight on the build, but I wouldn't trade Courtney Nicely for anybody. I mean, Courtney's a heck of a player, and next year will be one of the leaders on this squad. V. Bibbs, they ought to write a book about. You know, and we told V in the exit interview at the end of the season, each kid has an exit interview, she came within a breath of not having a scholarship offered to her after her freshman year. She got in academic problems early. Her work ethic was awful in first semester of her freshman year. Didn't get much better in the sophomore year. In the second semester. And this year she was like I can't explain it. There was just a different kid out there. There are times that she'd upset me because she wouldn't do things, but V and I have an unusual relationship. She knows I love her to pieces, and the kid works her tail off now a lot better, and she's flat out can play. She's one of the best rebounders that we played against this year. I mean, she's better than almost any rebounder that we played against this year. Kid can go up and get it, and she had a number of games where she was double-figure rebounds, and we look for big things. We hope to move her to a 4 next year. If our 5s stand up and play, then we can move her out to a 4 position. If she can, she has to get a little better on a 15-foot shot, but she could be a heck of a matchup problem for somebody at the 4 spot, because she's hard to guard for a 5 right now. So.
We don't have much time left, hardly any at all, truthfully, so I won't get into everything I wanted to cover, but real briefly, the post players, the 2 sophomores coming back, Ashley Elmore and Kelly Boyd. And I know that they both showed some signs. Ashley, especially Kelly, I know is a project that you look for big things from as we go along. So like you say, if they can improve, and I know Hillary O'Connell, and I'm missing some others, don't mean to, but the future looks bright, I feel, for IPFW women's basketball.
Well, we're excited about it, and I'll be real honest with you. If our 5s step up and play, and we've told the 5s this, if you'll step up and play Division I level basketball next year, mostly by intensity, not necessarily by talent, by intensity. If you do that, we'll be a very good mid-major basketball team. If they don't, then we'll struggle to get to that 500 wins. But if they'll step up, because they got the size, they got the tools, and I'm telling you that, in my opinion, our success depends on how well they do it, because the other positions I'm pretty confident will.
Wish we had more time, but we don't. Thanks for all your help. It's been fun. I know this team grew in a number of ways, and we appreciate all your help that you gave us this year, and look forward to an exciting 2003-2004. We'll ask you to come back sometime late April, early May, if you have any other players that you can announce, and we'll briefly talk about the schedule. But again, thanks for all the help this season.
It's been a joy.
We've been visiting with head coach Bruce Patterson of the IPFW women's basketball team. We'll take a break, and when we come back, We're going to talk about the upcoming health fair that will take place next week here on campus. But that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
I propose 3 cheers for those we leave behind.
Congratulations. It's in paper now. Good job. Congratulations. Proud of you. All right. Ensign Elliott. Who's going to salute him? Guys, who gets to salute him first?
I'd like to volunteer for something in legal aid. I was an assistant district attorney in New York City. I successfully prosecuted everything from extortion to murder.
That was a TV show. You weren't really an assistant district attorney.
I guess this isn't really a badge.
That's a Screen Actors Guild card.
I can spell habeas corpus. H-A-B.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
May he bless you and keep you. May he grant you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for coming. I'll see you all next week, and please be careful going home.
This is me, and my mom and dad, and my big brother Alex, and Jack. This is the day I learned that sandals got their name from sand, and that the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget I was sick. This was my wish.
Movie star heroes get to make some pretty amazing saves. Hi, I'm Kelly Hu for RAD, Recording Artists, Actors, and Athletes Against Drunk Driving. I'm here to tell you about an easy way to be a hero in real life. Keep a friend who's been drinking from getting behind the wheel. Even if they've only had 1 or 2, they're more likely to cause a crash and injure or even kill someone. So take their keys, call a cab, or drive them home. Remember, friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Kids, here's my favorite animal. Strong, intelligent, ethical, dependable, compassionate, and patriotic. By the way, where's John?
Intelligent, strong, ethical, dependable, compassionate, and patriotic.
When you help your neighbors, you help your nation. Everyone can do something.
Visit us at usafreedomcorps.gov.
When I was senator, I did a lot
After that, I was able to orbit the Earth in a great big rocket ship.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're going to change directions a little bit for this final segment of the program this week. And instead of talking about an athletic team, as we just did with head coach Bruce Patterson and women's basketball, we're going to talk about an event that's going to take place next week, Wednesday, March 26th, here on campus. And it's going to be the 14th annual IPFW Health Fair. And we have 2 ladies who have kindly come over to talk about it. To my immediate right is Joe Ballman. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Correct.
And to Joe's right, a face that you've gotten to be a little bit familiar with the last few weeks, Judy Tillapal, Fitness and Wellness Director here at IPFW. Ladies, thanks for coming over. Judy, I'm going to throw it at you. Health Fair number 14. Tell us about it.
It's coming up next week, and we're just truly, truly excited about offering this event to our campus community and general public. This is the biggest ever. We are going to have over 90 display booths for people to visit. Yes, it's very, very much bigger than last year, about 10% larger than last year.
How did it come about in the first place?
Well, my predecessor, Judy Wilkins, initiated the health fair 14 years ago. And I mean, it was her passion to definitely offer things to the campus community and general public to help them learn more about their health, to help them gain resources and tools and practical ideas that they could apply to themselves so that they could have a higher quality of life, better living.
Well, you've supplied us with a lot of information here. First and foremost, let's talk about where exactly on campus it's going to take place.
The health fair is going to be at the IPFW Walb Student Union. We're taking over the whole first floor. It's going to be in the ballroom, it's going to be in the hallways, it's going to be in the lounges. The health fair will be in the IPFW Walb Student Union on the first floor. Yeah.
And the time for the fair is?
9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Yeah.
When I look here, we'll talk about some of the demonstrations in a moment, but I want to go to a bunch of screenings, and maybe I'll rattle some of them off, and then you maybe can expound on some of them.
Sure.
Alcohol screening, anxiety screening, asthma screening, blood health profile, blood pressure screening, blood type, blood sugar screening, body mass index, body fat analysis, depression screening. Of course, my wife would say I'm guilty of that. Do your hands have cooties? I've got to find out about that one. Foot pressure screening, flexibility screening, gambling screening, and several others. Personality type inventory, prostate cancer screenings, oral cancer screening. A lot of screenings, which means you're getting a lot of people to come in here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, we expect over 800 people to be a part of the fair festivities. Yeah, we have over 30 screenings that people can participate in, and almost all of them are free, no charge. Just a couple of the blood screenings, there's a charge, like the blood health profile screening, the prostate screening, thyroid screening, there's a charge, but all of them are less than $30. So it's a very minimal price. We have a bone density screening that's only $15, but it's free for anybody over 40. So I can't encourage people enough to come and look at the menu of screenings that we're going to offer and pick out some screenings that they feel that they could really benefit from. I definitely am very, very proud about our mental health screenings that we have available. We're going to have a mental health screening corner with anxiety and depression and stress and gambling and alcohol. We have, Park Center that's going to become there, Park Behavioral Health, St. Joe Behavioral Health, our own IPFW Personal Counseling is going to be there. So all of these mental health organizations, groups, professionals will be there to really assist people to learn more about how they can improve their mental health.
Joe, let me come to you for a minute. You've got, I don't know what that is.
A pound of fat. And to illustrate this, we have Jared Vogel coming to campus, and one of our goals in the past, about a third of our population has been IPFW students that come over to the health fair. One of our goals this year is how can we increase the students wanting to take a short walk over to Walb Student Union. Many students of the age group of the traditional college student is not real concerned about their cholesterol level or their blood levels at this point in their life. So we tried to think of something that they might get them over to Walb. We were able to attract Jared Vogel to come to campus. He will be here 11 to 1. At 11, he's going to make a short presentation. He'll be open to question and answers, a little meet and greet. At 12 to 1, he'll be making a, believe it or not, 6-foot Subway sandwich with one of our cooking students. Jared himself, by eating 2 Subway sandwiches a day, lost 243 pounds, 243 of these in less than a year. His pant size waist used to be, and I believe this is 60 inches, and now they're 34 inches. So he almost now fits into what used to be one leg. And we want to bring him to campus because he will draw all age groups, and he specifically not only has changed his eating habits, but increased his exercise, his walking, and something that all of us of any age group can probably walk a little bit more every day and eat a little bit better.
243 of those.
These. In less than a year.
Yeah.
Unreal. Real briefly, because we don't have too much time left, some of the other demonstrations that you've got, Wellness Notes, IPFW Music Department?
Yeah, at 9 o'clock we're going to have a quartet that's going to be singing. So the music department is offering that. At 10 a.m., Ruth Wartell is going to be there to offer Mary Kay makeovers. So males and females are welcome to come up on stage and have a makeover. And then we'll have Jared at 11, and at 12 we'll have Jared and Jeremy Whitmore doing the subway sub demonstration. And at 1 o'clock, Jeremy Whitmore, IPFW student, he's going to do an Asian cooking demonstration. So he's going to pass on a lot of good recipes to us on how to cook up some Asian meals. Yeah, and at 2 o'clock we have our karate specialist coming. John Pendergrass is going to be talking about karate do's and don'ts.
I wish we had more time to talk about it, but unfortunately we don't. Real quickly, it's a week away. Phone number if anyone has any other questions or wants some more information.
481-6647.
Okay, 481-6647. Ladies, thanks for coming on, and I wish you the best. 14th Annual IPFW Health Fair will take place next Wednesday, March 26th from 9 to 3 over at the Walp Student Union building. So, again, thanks for coming on, and good luck with the fair.
Thanks. Thank you.
We've had Joe Ballman and Judy Tillapal on talking about the health fair. We also had Bruce Patterson on earlier, head women's basketball coach, reviewing the recently completed women's basketball season. We thank Bruce for coming on as well. And as always, we thank you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. We invite you to come back again next week for another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. But until next week, this is Mike Moss saying have a great week and go Dons.